All right, let me share my screen here. And today we are starting in chapter 25, section 7, the Rock of Salvation. And we'll have time to discuss after I read this. Yet if the Holy Spirit can commute each sentence that you laid upon yourself into a blessing, then it cannot be a sin. Sin is the only thing in all the world that cannot change. It is immutable, and on its changelessness, the world depends. The magic of the world can seem to hide the pain of sin from sinners and deceive with glitter and with guile. Yet each one knows the cost of sin is death, and so it is. For sin is a request for death, a wish to make this world's foundation sure as love, dependable as heaven, and as strong as God himself. The world is safe from love to everyone who thinks sin possible, nor will it change. Yet, is it possible what God created not should share the attributes of his creation when it opposes it in every way? It cannot be the sinner's wish for death is just as strong as is God's will for life. Nor can the basis of the world he did not make be firm and sure as heaven. How could it be that hell and heaven are the same? And is it possible that what he did not will cannot be changed? What is immutable besides his will? And what can share its attributes except itself? What wish can rise against his will and be immutable? If you could realize nothing is changeless but the will of God, this course would not be difficult for you, for it is this that you do not believe. Yet there is nothing else you could believe if you but looked at what reality is. Let us go back to what we said before and think of it more carefully. It must be so that either God is mad or is this world a place of madness? Not one thought of his makes any sense at all within this world, and nothing that the world believes as true has any meaning in his mind at all. What makes no sense and has no meaning is insanity, and what is madness cannot be truth. If one belief so deeply valued here were true, then every thought God ever had is an illusion. And if but one thought of his is true, then all beliefs the world gives any meaning to are false and make no sense at all. This is the choice you make. Do not attempt to see it differently, nor twist it into something it is not. For only this decision can you make. The rest is up to God, and not to you. To justify one value that the world upholds is to deny your Father's sanity and yours. For God and his beloved Son do not think differently. And it is the agreement of their thought that makes the Son a co-creator with the mind whose thought created him. So if he chooses to believe one thought opposed to truth, he has decided he is not his Father's son, because the Son is mad, and sanity must lie apart from both the Father and the Son. This you believe. Think not that this belief depends upon the form it takes. Who thinks the world is sane in any way, is justified in anything it thinks, or is maintained by any form of reason, believes this to be true. Sin is not real because the Father and the Son are not insane. This world is meaningless because it rests on sin. Who could create the change if it does not rest on truth. The Holy Spirit has the power to change the whole foundation of the world you see to something else, a basis not insane, on which a sane perception can be based, another world perceived, and one in which nothing is contradicted that would lead the Son of God to sanity and joy. Nothing attests to death and cruelty, to separation and to differences. For here is everything perceived as one, and no one loses, that each one may gain. Test everything that you believe against this one requirement, and understand that everything that meets this one demand is worthy of your faith, but nothing else. What is not love is sin, and either one perceives the other as insane and meaningless. Love is the basis for a world perceived as wholly mad to sinners who believe theirs is the way to sanity. But sin is equally insane without the sight of love, whose gentle eyes would look beyond the madness and rest peacefully on truth. Each sees a world immutable, as each defines the changeless and eternal truth of what you are. And each reflects a view of what the Father and the Son must be to make that viewpoint meaningful and sane. Your special function is the special form in which the fact that God is not insane appears most sensible and meaningful to you. The content is the same. The form is suited to your special needs and to the special time and place in which you think you find yourself, and where you can be free of place and time, and all that you believe must limit you. The Son of God cannot be bound by time, nor place, nor anything God did not will. Yet, if his will is seen as madness, then the form of sanity which makes it most acceptable to those who are insane requires a special choice. Nor can this choice be made by the insane, whose problem is their choices are not free and made with reason in the light of sense. It would be madness to entrust salvation to the insane. Because he is not mad, has God appointed one as sane as he to raise a saner world to meet the sight of everyone who chose insanity as his salvation. To this one is given the choice of form most suitable to him, one which will not attack the world he sees, but enter into it in quietness and show him he is mad. This one but points to an alternative, another way of looking at what he has seen before and recognizes as the world in which he lives and thought he understood before. Now must he question this, because the form of the alternative is one which he cannot deny, nor overlook, nor fail completely to perceive at all. To each, his special function is designed to be perceived as possible and more desired, as it proves to him that it is an alternative he really wants. From this position does his sinfulness and all the sin he sees within the world offer him less and less, until he comes to understand it cost him his sanity and stands between him and whatever hope he has of being sane. Nor is he left without escape from madness, for he has a special part in everyone's escape. He can no more be left outside without a special function in the hope of peace than could the Father overlook his Son and pass him by in careless thoughtlessness. What is dependable except God's love? And where does sanity abide except in him? The one who speaks for him can show you this. in the alternative he chose especially for you. It is God's will that you remember this, and so emerge from deepest mourning into perfect joy. Accept the function that has been assigned to you in God's own plan to show his Son that hell and heaven are different, not the same, and that in heaven they are all the same, without the differences which would have made a hell of heaven and a heaven of hell had such insanity been possible. The whole belief that someone loses but reflects the underlying tenet, God must be insane. For in this world, it seems that one must gain because another lost. If this were true, then God is mad indeed. But what is this belief except a form of the more basic tenet, sin is real and rules the world? For every little gain must someone lose, and pay exact amount in blood and suffering, for otherwise would evil triumph and destruction be the total cost of any gain at all. You who believe that God is mad, look carefully at this and understand that it must be either God or this must be insane, but hardly both. Salvation is rebirth of the idea no one can lose for anyone to gain, and everyone must gain if anyone would be a gainer. Here is sanity restored, and on this single rock of truth can faith in God's eternal sameness rest in perfect confidence and perfect peace. Reason is satisfied, for all insane beliefs can be corrected here, and sin must be impossible if this is true. This is the rock on which salvation rests, the vantage point from which the Holy Spirit gives meaning and direction to the plan in which your special function has a part. For here, your special function is made whole because it shares the function of the whole. Remember, all temptation is but this, a mad belief that God's insanity would make you sane and give you what you want, that either God or you must lose to madness because your aims cannot be reconciled. Death demands life, but life is not maintained at any cost. No one can suffer for the will of God to be fulfilled. Salvation is his will because you share it, not for you alone, but for the self that is the Son of God. He cannot lose, for if he could, the loss would be his Father's, and in him, no loss is possible. And this is sane because it is the truth. Oh, there's a lot to unpack in there. A lot of going back from the ego's perspective to the Holy Spirit's perspective. It is kind of interesting, though, I thought, on how it said, we all have this bit of special function here within the world of illusion, right? We all have our special function that the Holy Spirit has kind of allowed us to see or use within the illusion to bring us out of the insanity. That's what I got out of this. Anybody else have anything they want to share?
Well, I think this again affirms that any reasonable person, if they really look carefully at the Course, cannot help but see how reasonable it is. I mean, the Course is based on, well, not necessarily based on, but it certainly shows the fact that it is a reasonable thing, and everything else is unreasonable.
Yeah.
What I get out of that, you lose nothing in God, that everyone gains. We think of things as I have to be more superior than you, or I have to gain something, and that means that you lose something in order for me to gain it, or whatever. We see things as we don't have it all, and therefore we have to achieve it. And in that way, we're taking it away from someone else. But no one is in lack. There is more than enough for all. There are endless possibilities and abundance. And therefore, when you see that whole picture, you're no longer in conflict and you're no longer in competition. And so you freely can be yourself, and that self is not a threat to anyone else as they are being themselves, because it's all aspects of a whole thing. And so you're just part of that whole. And I love that we do not have to feel in lack in any way. We are all an expression of that entirety.
Yeah. So the way that I'm understanding it is anything that does not involve love is illusion.
Yeah.
If you're feeling envy, if you're feeling hate, if you're feeling angst, anything along those lines that does not entail feeling love, then that's the illusion. And I think that's what this whole thing said in a lot of ways. Keep going back to that. And I think the next thing what is the next thing that it says? Is justice as love? What is it? No. It says justice, return to love. I mean, and it's hard to even fathom that, right? Because we so quickly go into being judgmental. So quickly, we feel we could be envious or jealous. And that's all that learned behavior that involves, that's part of the illusion.
And also, too, I think it's that early domestication experience that we are not enough, right? That somehow we're lacking.
Mm-hmm.
And as we come into actually knowing the grandeur of the one mind of God that's within us, we know we can't be lacking, right? But there's a lot of undoing in that early domestication, that process, unless it's instant, unless you're one of those, have that moment of those aha moments of, oh my gosh, I am the embodiment of the grandeur of God. And if you can hold on to that, right, for more than just an instant and carry that through you, you'd never again feel any of those things, those jealousies, those lacks, those envy, because you have everything you ever would ever want, because you have everything.
Right. So I mean, and I have to equate something here, which is the hallucinogens. Before I did anything spiritual, there were trips, man, with everybody and everything looked beautiful, beauty everywhere.
Right.
Okay, well, we were under the influence then, but still, you were experiencing it. Because then I've gone to some of these spiritual retreats, and I've gotten the same feeling, and I was like, wow, this reminded me of the trips that I had. It was like, damn, I feel like I'm tripping. Is there something in the food that I've been eating that's making me feel this way? And the difference is that lasts longer. That this could go on for days feeling like that with having taken nothing. And then, we fall back to that other picture, the picture of the illusion that we live in most of the time. What doesn't the Course say that when you feel that way, that whole blissfulness, you are awakening from this dream?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
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 Exactly.
Yeah. I loved how you're reading about sin And my favorite part of the course, it talks about like where the teacher says like, you think you're so powerful you can change God's mind about you. I don't know if you remember that part in the course. It's like, you think you're so powerful. And I love the tone of the Course in Miracles where Jesus is just like looking down at us like little kids, and he's like, who, do you think you can change the mind of the Father? You're like, who do you think you are? I just love that part.
And I think too that the takeaway from that is that
Yeah.
we are the mind of the Father. So why would we change our own mind about what we are, right?
Right.
We're an expression of the mind, the one mind of God. So why would we want to change that?
Right. Right.
I,
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
I find the part here that talks about special function, I find that intriguing. I'm not sure that I fully understand it, but apparently that's what can bring meaning to a person, is that they have something that they have an assignment they've been given. That's how I'm coming to understand that. It's an interesting concept.
Yeah, Mary and I talked about that briefly before. We get on at about 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for about 30 minutes for any of you who want to join. And we have just casual conversation. And sometimes those conversations lead us to what we're reading as part of what usually happens. But we were talking about just that, like what do you think you're here for? And I think for me, I always wanted to know, what is the point? Why am I here? Like, I don't understand. Like, if this is all an illusion, I mean, it can't be just to wake up every day and go to work and feed your face and clean your house. Like, that can't be the point, right? Like, there's
Yeah.
got to be more to it. And
Right.
I
Right.
think that, the whole special
Yeah.
function that I find in my heart is I want to know what the point is, and I think reading the course and understanding, well, the point is your function is, and whenever it says that your function is like happiness is your only function, I'm like, oh, like really? That's it? That's happiness? Not to like try to figure out all the details of all these things. And, it's like, oh, well, how do you find happiness? Well, just embody the love of God and be that. Okay, well, that made my whole function very simple, right? Just be loved and you have fulfilled your function. Okay, great. And however that is, if you can show up and be love, if you have to get up and meet people during the day, if you're going to go grab a cup of coffee, if you have to go to the grocery store, just be love, right? Share that joy and that love with your brother, just be an extension of the one mind of God to everyone you meet. And in my mind, that fulfills my special function. That makes me very happy to be an extension of that. Not that I have an expectation of anything in return, but it just makes me feel so happy to be happy. Just it makes me feel so joyful knowing that I am a part of all my brothers, and even to the point where, someone can come at you and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this person's angry with me or they're upset. It's like, okay, all attack is merely a cry for love. So how can I answer this with love? How can I look and see the Christ in my brother at this moment when it appears in my human eyes, it appears that they're like coming at me and I have to defend myself. But then I can make that choice in that instant to say, no, I choose to see the Christ in my brother at this moment. And I choose to make a choice from that perspective, right? And then it becomes like a challenge. Okay, how many times can I find myself at that moment and just stop and make that choice?
But it seems like in this section that that there is something special that we were to do. Well, like the scribe who heard the dictation of the course, that seemed to have been a special function. Is that an understanding of special function?
That could be a special function, but a special function could be as simple as smiling at someone who walks past you.
Yep. And for me this morning, I had to go out in the mad rush that's in the last hours here before Christmas. And I knew that I was going to come across traffic. I was going to come across people. And I got to find a close spot, you know, and I'm going through all this in my mind. I go, no, man, find the first spot that you find, park and walk. Oh, but it's cold out there. You're dressed for it. I'm going through all this thing. The first thing I come across, I'm crossing the street, the parking area. I mean, there's cars everywhere, sure enough, everything, you know. And the police officer is just standing there having coffee, like almost taking a break. And he goes, "Good morning, sir. How are you today?" And I looked at him and it was like, wow, what was that? You know, and I said, thank you. I'm feeling fine. How are you? You know, and have a good morning. And I kept going. And then this woman was not parked, but with her cart there waiting for, I guess, to be picked up. And she goes, "Merry Christmas." And I'm thinking to myself, wow, what am I showing that these people are reaching out to me? So there's those two references. I walk into the store, no problem. A lot of people, no problem. I went about my business. I had to do some little shopping here and there. And at no point was I stressed out at all with all the madness that was going on inside that store. And people were actually feeling happy. I felt like the happiness was there. And for them to say something like that to me, just, you know, complete strangers, the police officer himself, you know, all armed and shit, out with his gun, he's got a vest on, you know, he's ready for battle. It was revealing to me. And then I forgot all about that. Today was Monday. And at the last minute, I realized, oh, of course, I'm home. I got my son here and his wife and the dog, you know.
That's awesome. I love that.
So having a lot of fun.
Yeah. I feel like just like how complicated the body is and like how sophisticated it is and how like complex life is, there has to be like a higher purpose for the whole thing because it's like so complicated, you know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you know, too, Scott, as I was reading this, I was
Yeah.
thinking of the movie The Matrix.
Oh yeah.
Totally. I'm like, okay, so your special function within the Matrix, right?
Yeah.
Because I kind of see that too, right? Like
Yeah.
Neo is like, you got to follow the white rabbit, you know, and it's like that's his
Yeah.
special function was like to get out and so his special function within the Matrix was trying to figure out how to get out of the Matrix so that he could see it for what it really was, an illusion, right? So kind of like, okay, so Course in Miracles has now come into our lives in miraculous ways, right? However it came to your life. And now
Yeah.
you're reading this book and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is really interesting and it's showing me a different way of looking at the world. So how do I incorporate this now into my illusion?
Right. Well, that has that beautiful chapter in the course where it talks about like the purpose of the body.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, communication, right? Just communication.
Yes. So he talks about like how the body is really made for like communion
Yeah.
with like like other souls and with God and like feeling a deep sense of unity and oneness, like a communication device is really more the purpose of it.
Right. So that we can reach to other bodies that
Yeah.
also think they are separate, and we
Right.
can show them that they're not, that we're actually one, and we can share that oneness when we have these moments of for true forgiveness or moments of seeing the Christ in our brother when perhaps we would initially want to be in retreat or attack mode, you know. And those are those moments of the body being like, okay, I can either look at your body coming at me right now, or I can see the Christ in you and know that you and I are one.
Right.
Yep. And so I like to get cards that are blank, and then I like to put quotes in there from Course in Miracle. So I always acknowledge it by just writing CIM. And I have one particular person who I have give cards to, and I have CIM. And every time I'm asked, what is CIM? From the same person, right? And this is like, I mean, religiously all the time. And at first I was getting triggered. I was saying, damn, how come she can't remember this, right? And then after a while, it's like, just repeat it as much as you want, because guess what? It doesn't matter. It does not matter.
Right.
So I learned to like calm my own angst down, like, because I check myself out and say, why are you getting triggered by that? What's the purpose? If she ain't getting it, she ain't getting it. It doesn't matter. And so I relaxed into it. And then I heard her say something to me like, this is what I keep hearing. I have to look into this. I said, yeah, anytime you want. How do you sum up the book? Oh, that's easy. Forgiveness and love. Oh, that poo-poo stuff again, huh? I was like, yeah, poo-poo stuff.
All right, shall we keep going? Let's get
Yeah.
into our next section. That was some great conversations, by the way. I just want to remind everyone, if there's going to be noise in the background, to make sure you mute yourself.
Oh, good.
Okay, justice returned to love. The Holy Spirit can use all that you give to him for your salvation, but he cannot use what you withhold, for he cannot take it from you without your willingness. For if he did, you would believe he wrested it from you against your will. And so you would not learn it is your will to be without it. You need not give it to him wholly willingly, for if you could, you had no need of him. But this he needs, that you prefer he take it than that you keep it for yourself alone, and recognize that what brings loss to no one you would not know. This much is necessary to add to the idea no one can lose for you to gain, and nothing more. Here's the only principle salvation needs. Nor is it necessary that your faith in it be strong, unswerving, and without attack from all beliefs opposed to it. You have no fixed allegiance. But remember, salvation is not needed by the saved. You are not called upon to do what one divided still against himself would find impossible. Have little faith that wisdom could be found in such a state of mind. But be you thankful that only little faith is asked of you. What but a little faith remains to those who still believe in sin? What could they know of heaven and the justice of the saved? There is a kind of justice and salvation of which the world knows nothing. To the world, justice and vengeance are the same. For sinners see justice only as their punishment, perhaps sustained by someone else, but not escaped. The laws of sin demand a victim, who, it may be, makes little difference. But death must be the cost and must be paid. This is not justice, but insanity. Yet, how could justice be defined without insanity, where love means hate, and death is seen as victory and triumph over eternity and timelessness and life? You who know not of justice still can ask and learn the answer. Justice looks on all in the same way. It is not just that one should lack for what another has, for that is vengeance in whatever form it takes. Justice demands no sacrifice, for any sacrifice is made that sin may be preserved and kept. It is a payment offered for the cost of sin, but not the total cost. The rest is taken from another to be laid beside your little payment to atone for all that you would keep and not give up. So is the victim seen as partly you with someone else by far the greater part. And in the total cost, the greater his, the less is yours. And justice, being blind, is satisfied by being paid. It matters not by whom. Can this be justice? God knows not of this. But justice does he know, and knows it well. For he is wholly fair to everyone. Vengeance is alien to God's mind because he knows of justice. To be just is to be fair and not be vengeful. Fairness and vengeance are impossible, for each one contradicts the other and denies that it is real. It is impossible for you to share the Holy Spirit's justice with a mind that can conceive of specialness at all. Yet how could he be just if he condemns a sinner for the crimes he did not do, but thinks he did? And where would justice be if he demanded of the ones obsessed with the idea of punishment that they lay it aside, unaided, and perceive is not true? It is extremely hard for those who still believe sin meaningful to understand the Holy Spirit's justice. They must believe he shares their own confusion and cannot avoid the vengeance that their own belief in justice must entail. And so they fear the Holy Spirit and perceive the wrath of God in him. Nor can they trust him not to strike them dead with lightning bolts, torn from the fires of heaven by God's own angry hand. They do believe that heaven is hell and are afraid of love. And deep suspicion and the chill of fear comes over them when they are told that they have never sinned. Their world depends on sin's stability, and they perceive the threat of what God knows as justice to be more destructive to themselves and to their world than vengeance, which they understand and love. So do they think the loss of sin a curse and flee the Holy Spirit as if he were a messenger from hell, sent from above in treachery and guile to work God's vengeance on them in the guise of a deliverer and friend? What could he be to them except a devil dressed to deceive with an angel's cloak? And what escape has he for them except a door to hell that seems to look like heaven's gate? Yet justice cannot punish those who ask for punishment, but have a judge who knows that they are wholly innocent in truth. In justice, he is bound to set them free and give them all the honor they deserve and have denied themselves because they are not fair and cannot understand that they are innocent. Love is not understandable to sinners because they think that justice is split off from love and stands for something else. And thus is love perceived as weak and vengeance strong. For love has lost when judgment left its side and is too weak to save from punishment. But vengeance without love has gained in strength by being separate and apart from love. And what but vengeance now can help and save, while love stands feebly by, with helpless hands bereft of justice and vitality, and powerless to save? What can love ask of you, who think that all of this is true? Could he, in justice and in love, believe in your confusion you have much to give? You're not asked to trust him far. No more than what you see he offers you, and what you recognize you could not give yourself. In God's own justice does he recognize all you deserve, but understands as well that you cannot accept it for yourself. It is his special function to hold out to you the gifts the innocent deserve. And every one that you accept brings joy to him, as well as you. He knows that heaven is richer made by each one you accept. And God rejoices as his son receives what loving justice knows to be his due. For love and justice are not different. Because they are the same, does mercy stand at God's right hand and gives the Son of God the power to forgive himself of sin. To him who merits everything, how can it be that anything be kept from him? For that would be injustice and unfair indeed to all the holiness that is in him, however much he recognize it not. God knows of no injustice. He would not allow his Son be judged by those who seek his death and could not see his worth at all. What honest witnesses could they call forth to speak on his behalf? And who would come to plead for him and not against his life? No justice would be given him by you. Yet God ensured that justice would be done unto the Son he loves, and would protect from all unfairness you might seek to offer, believing vengeance is his proper due. As specialness cares not who pays the cost of sin, so it be paid, the Holy Spirit heeds not who looks on innocence at last, provided it is seen and recognized. For just one witness is enough, if he truly sees. Simple justice asks no more. Of each one does the Holy Spirit ask if he will be that one, so justice may return to love and there be satisfied. Each special function he allots is but for this, that each one learn that love and justice are not separate, and both are strengthened by their union with each other. Without love is justice prejudiced and weak, and love without justice is impossible. For love is fair and cannot chasten without cause. What cause can be to warrant an attack upon the innocent? In justice, then, does love correct mistakes, but not in vengeance, for that would be unjust to the innocents. You can be perfect witness to the power of love and justice if you understand it is impossible the Son of God could merit vengeance. You need not perceive in every circumstance that this is true, nor need you look to your experience within the world, which is but shadows of all that is really happening within yourself. The understanding that you need comes not of you, but from a larger self, so great and holy that he could not doubt his innocence. Your special function is to call him, that he may smile on you whose sinlessness he shares. His understanding will be yours, and so the Holy Spirit's special function has been fulfilled. God's Son has found a witness unto his sinlessness, and not his sins. How little need you give the Holy Spirit that simple justice may be given you. Without impartiality, there is no justice. How can specialness be just? Judge not because you cannot, not because you are a miserable sinner too. How can the special really understand that justice is the same for everyone? To take from one, to give another, must be an injustice to them both, since they are equal in the Holy Spirit's sight. Their Father gave the same inheritance to both. Who would have more or less is not aware that he has everything. He is no judge of what must be another's due, because he thinks he is deprived. And so must he be envious and try to take away from whom he judges. He's not impartial and cannot fairly see another's rights, because his own have been obscured to him. You have the right to all the universe, to perfect peace, complete deliverance from all effects of sin, and to the life eternal, joyous and complete in every way. as God appointed for his holy Son. This is the only justice heaven knows, and all the Holy Spirit brings to earth. Your special function shows you nothing else but perfect justice can prevail for you. And you are safe from vengeance in all forms. The world deceives, but it cannot replace God's justice with a version of its own. For only love is just and can perceive what justice must accord the Son of God. Let love decide, and never fear that you, in your unfairness, will deprive yourself of what God's justice has allotted you.
Wow.
You know, it goes back to a story that I'll share again, and I'll apologize in advance for those of you who've heard it before. I was in a situation where I had been divorced from my ex for several years, and we had become friends. And because of that, we shared birthdays and holidays with the kids and with the relatives. So, you know, the kids would see their father, and we would have a good relationship, and, you know, everything was great. And even to the point where, you know, I remarried, and we would still get together with my exes and his family. So at one point, my ex had a girlfriend who didn't share that same camaraderie and decided from this point forward, everything was going to be split. And not only did she not share that, but she also forbade my ex from talking to me or being around me, and started forbidding his family from talking to me. And it was so bizarre. And, you know, and I kept saying, you know, I don't know what I did. I don't know why this person feels threatened by me. I have no interest in getting together with my ex. So I would reach out and extend the olive branch just to try to make her feel more comfortable. And the more I did that, the more it pushed her away. And I thought, my gosh, you know, what can I do? So then I finally went to my ex and I was like, you know, you can't do this. This isn't fair to our kids. It's not a good environment for them to be raised in. And, you know, then he started getting angry with me, and he wouldn't talk to me. And he was like, well, you know, I can't talk to you right now about this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, everybody has gone mad. So I remember I was at that point where I'm like, this is not okay. I've done everything I can do. I've jumped through hoops. And this is so upsetting to me because I feel like it's going to hurt my children. And I was going for a run, and I had tried everything. And of course, I had been a student of A Course in Miracles at this point for about 20 years. The only thing I hadn't tried was letting it go and giving it to the Holy Spirit. Simple, right? Like, why do we not do that with everything, right? And I'm learning to do that more and more and more. So I'm at that point of putting on my sneakers, and I'm getting ready to go for a run, and I'm like got tears in my eyes, and I'm like, I give this to you. Be you in charge, for I shall follow you, certain that your direction will give me peace. And I just let it go. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I've tried everything, and I just let it go. And I went for a run. And all of a sudden, as I'm running, I get this booming sound in my ear, like not booming, but just like this. It was my own voice in my ear. Obviously, I wasn't talking to myself, but it just said, you need do nothing. That was the answer. That was the just answer for all concerned. I didn't have to do anything except let this go. And so I let it go completely, to the point where it didn't bother me anymore that he wasn't talking to me. I was just myself with my children. I had I wasn't getting angry or upset because we couldn't sit together at their chorus or their games or their softball games or baseball games. I was like, you know what? This is perfectly fine. It's absolutely perfectly fine. And I need do nothing. And all of a sudden, everything worked itself out. Everything worked itself out. And he and I are, back to being buddies again. And, she's kind of not in the picture anymore, which would have been fine if she was, but it just worked itself out. I didn't have to worry about it. And I think that's a big takeaway for me in this whole section, this justice return to love, is we forget, right? We forget that we think we have to forgive people. We think we have to do the work, and we don't. We just have to have that little willingness to give it to the Holy Spirit to say, I give this to you. I don't need to do, this is not mine to do, because in my alignment with fear, I can't do anything anyways. I've already aligned with fear. So love isn't even present for me. So until I'm ready to give this to the Holy Spirit, I can't align with love. Only then can I then go back to aligning with love. But that is a lesson I've learned over and over and over again.
Yes, and then it can escalate into this other thing that's mentioned in some of the things that I read, that no one punishes us more than we punish ourselves. Then we start punishing ourselves, and that's really bizarre, right? Because you say, "Wow, wait a minute, there's nothing wrong with me, man. I'm all right."
Yeah, and that's why forgiveness works both ways, right?
And forgiving ourselves is the biggie.
Mhm.
We forget. Sometimes we forget what we're doing to ourselves, because then you start, what did I do? How can I fix this?
How can I fix this? Exactly. And we don't have to fix it. We just have to give it to the Holy Spirit to
Yeah,
fix.
Yeah.
that higher part that knows it all.
Mhm. The higher self.
Yeah, it's sort of like that matrix, like the wake up process of like, you can't change God. So, like, no matter what anyone's doing, like, even if people are like not being nice or not being like loving or they're being distant, it doesn't change the reality of like a loving creator that's there all the time for you. So, I don't know, for me personally, a lot of times it's just like, I kind of just like, I'm like, okay, that's right. That's fine. You can do whatever you want, but I'm totally just with God. And that's, you know, my kind of comfort type of thing in situations. Like the whole course is like, you don't change the world at all. You just let it do its thing. Because God's like, I don't know, I'm just chilling like the sun, shining my love and my light. And everyone else does, like we were just reading, like everyone else is, can be a little bit not in the right mind sometimes. So anyway, that's what helps me a lot.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that, Scott.
Yeah.
I'm what might be called a recovering Southern Baptist.
Oh, cool.
And I remember, growing up with all those sermons and hymns about God's vengeance and
Oh, God.
that being justice. And then finally came across a new hymn that went like this: that there's a wideness in God's mercy, like the wideness of the sea. There's a kindness in his justice. And that was a new concept, a new understanding. Um,
Mm.
and sometimes, those things come along that just kind of gives you a little jolt.
Yeah. I think I told you, Maynard, that the person who gave me my first A Course in Miracles copy sent it to me was a Baptist preacher.
Um,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so kind of an interesting story. His name was Scott Prather, and his father is Hugh Prather, who writes a lot of books on A Course in Miracles. And so he was in a lot of the rooms with Jerry Jampolsky and a lot of the people who were in the beginning passing out copies of A Course in Miracles. Anyway, so he, got his hands on a copy of this Course in Miracles, and he was reading it and it was so profound to him, he started sharing it with his congregation.
Mhm.
And he was like, I have got to share this. You know, this is such good information. So he was using it in his sermons at his church. And then the higher ups found out and came down and said, Scott, you can't share this here in this church. You know, this is not what we teach. And he said, but we should be teaching this. This is truth. Like we need to be teaching this and sharing this. He said, well, we don't do it in this church. So if you insist that this is the way you want to go, you can no longer be a part of this church. So they kicked him out. But it was interesting that, you know, that he was a preacher, a Baptist preacher before he got his hands on this information. And he felt so strongly about it that he, like I said, he tried to talk to me at one point and he was telling me about the book and he's like, yeah, and it talks about God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit. And I'm like, oh no, no, no. Those are not things I am interested in at all. Like I want to hear about the universal consciousness and truth and love. And he's like, no, 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 but words are symbols of symbols. It doesn't, you know, you got to read the book. And I'm just like, I don't think that's for me. And then of course he sent me the book and I'm like, oh, now I feel like I have to read it because he sent it to me. So as I had mentioned earlier, I was thumbing through the text and then thumbing through the workbook, which I thought looked interesting, but the manual for teachers is really what kind of did it for me. It grabbed me and I just was like, wow, this is powerful. This is really good information. I need to read this book.
Yeah, the Course in Miracles is a total reorientation because I'm familiar with all those terms, Holy Spirit, you know, all of these, salvation, but they have different meaning from what the Course has.
Right.
So it's a reinterpretation, a letting go of a lot of old to let the new come in.
Yeah. Peeling of the onion, right? And that's what the lessons do. The lessons do that. Like they systematically help you to let go of the all of the meaning that you have given everything. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's hard to break the patterns of that we've learned through our life, and all of a sudden we see this something else being presented to us, and we kind of fight it. We have a difficult time believing it. I mean, it took me a long time to understand a lot of the stuff from the Course, and I'm still studying it because it's still developing for me anyway. I mean, and because I also read Don Miguel's Toltec stuff, that seems to align right with the Course. For me, I kind of was learning both of them at the same time, and they just aligned. And then I started to read Pima Schroden and all these other things, and I saw how all that was aligning. And so now it helped me to understand the Course even more so.
Yeah.
And I come across people that at the beginning, they would ask me what it's about, and I'm trying to explain it to them, and they were to no avail. and now when they ask me, I try to keep it as simple as easy as possible, and that's a 2-word frame, forgiveness and love. And they can take that any way they want, and usually they do, like, ooh, that's poo-poo stuff, right? Oh, okay, yeah, doesn't even bother me anymore. It's like, yeah, it is.
Yeah. It's interesting they say that's foo-foo stuff, because that's in part of what we were just reading was how people identify forgiveness and love with weakness, right?
Mhm.
That the strength is really in vengeance and justice, and what their idea of that is.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes I can't even dispute that. It's just like, well, there is another way to think about that, but I don't know if I can explain it to you where you would understand what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, the course. I'm in a Zoom meeting. I don't know.
But when you relax into it,
Uh,
it seems like they get some of
okay.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. But what the Course says is that love is strength because it unifies,
Mhm.
and hate is actually weakness because it divides.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the power of love, is it's a unifying force.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm very new. I'm very new to the Course in Miracles, so I'm just wondering. There's a program, a series, Journey Through the Text and Journey Through the Workbook with Kenneth Wapnick something.
Hmm.
And it's going to start on January 1st to go through the text and the workbook one a day for the year. And then the other one is Marianna Williamson's sent out an email saying she's also going to be doing like a $25 a month membership thing where she'll read the text and explain it to you, and then read and send it to you every day or something, and then a live once a month you can ask her questions. And I was just wondering, are those guys equal teachers like Kenneth and Mariana, or is one better than the other? Do they teach kind of the same thing or different things? Do you
So
know?
Ken has passed. He was one of the original, I think within the founders, not necessarily a founder, but right there with most of the founders. And he used to have a place in Roscoe in New York that we went to a few times. So we used to hear Ken speak, and he had a really, I feel, a good understanding of A Course in Miracles. Marianne Williamson obviously is still alive and around. And if you're looking for someone who is going to be answering questions, you're probably more apt to go the Marianne Williamson ways. But there are so many YouTube videos and just also free information that you can tap into too if you're looking, to deepen your study. I would say the most important thing about studying A Course in Miracles is doing the lessons and doing the work, because people sometimes would come to my study groups like once a week, and it's like that feel good thing, right? They'd show up and they'd feel really good and get that like hit of dopamine, and oh yeah, this is great, it feels good. And then they'd go off on their merry way all week long and live life without thinking about it, right? And what A Course in Miracles says is you must be vigilant of mind wandering. And if you really want to understand A Course in Miracles, you don't really need a study group. You just need to do the work. You just need to read the text, and you need to read the lessons simultaneously. But if you're the type of person that wants to be a part of a community, certainly, yes, whatever resonates with your heart. There's a lot of good information out there. Another good one is the person I share, the Course in Miracles now has the free Course in Miracles. That's the screen I share. That's David Hoffmeister, right? And he's great too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a
And
lot
what
of
about
really.
James Twineman, the songs, the daily songs that go along with the lessons? So there's lots of people out there. For me, it's if you're going to listen to it, whose voice, puts you in more of a relaxed state. If you're going to listen to the lessons, one at a time, find, that which you like. And certainly, as Terry said, since Marianne Williamson is still alive, if you're just comparing those two, you can, communicate with her or with others who study in her groups.
Yeah, but they're
Yeah,
they're all
thank you.
just
Thank
as.
you so much. I don't know anything about any of the leaders. I just have heard about those two only. So this is really helpful to me. I just was like, I kind of wanted to not be led astray and follow the wrong one. So I was like, oh, what should I do? And I do like the group because I have tried to read some of the text on my own, and it does seem to be a little confusing and quite complex and um little disrupting. And so it's nice to be able to have a group to come in and a community that can discuss and talk and you learn and grow. I get much more value from A Course in Miracles being able to experience with others, not just trying to figure it out myself. Because it does seem to be, and maybe it's just because I'm new, quite a difficult read on
Oh,
some
yeah.
things. Thank you.
I have felt that way getting through it for many, many years. It's much easier now, but I've also been doing it for 32 years. So
Likewise, yes. And there's still passages that I have to reread and still rereading them. Well, read the book over and over again. So
Well, I find this group to be very helpful for two things. One is I learn something from everybody. Everybody who says something, I learn something. And the second thing is what you've emphasized, Terry, is that you keep pushing us to do the work. Those two things, learning and then having someone to just keep reminding us this is what you need to do.
yeah.
yes, and
And-
I think it's Maria. Maria is definitely on the right track because she said it. I don't want to be led astray.
Mhm.
And that's pretty much how I think I've always felt about this. Because I've been in some groups that just don't resonate with me. I mean, I had to let them go.
Were you going to add something,
Yeah,
Mary?
there are many other Course in Miracles groups too. You can find them on Meetup. Most of us can, give you referrals to other groups. So if you want to be in other group settings, depending on how much you want to immerse yourself in the study or in the beingness, there's lots of opportunity. I myself, welcome to work with people doing the lessons one at a time and explaining anything or, discussing it. So there's lots of opportunity out there.
Do you have something to ask, Lori?
Yeah, just a quick one to Marie is that Marie, I'm also a newbie and I just wanted to remind you that we're here in a group with Terry, who I just find gracious, beautiful in her heart and generous. And I'm learning a lot. I'm quiet a lot because there's a lot of information to absorb. But girl, you're right in a group right now. So hang around and let's do it, okay?
Yeah, and I'm always open for questions. If you have questions you want to reach out. I also have a Facebook group, Living A Course in Miracles. That's a free group that people are welcome to join and participate in. And so yeah, there's a lot of opportunity to learn and grow. All right, and with that, thank you all. I know we went a little bit past. It's 1:38. I want to keep you from your other obligations, but great to see you, and hopefully I'll see you all next Monday.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
enjoy
you.
your holiday.
Oh, thank you.
All right, bye everyone.
I-
Bye. Bye-bye.